Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at AnyMoon.com's review of Arcadia's 160 YF-19 with Fast Packs toy. This toy debuted in March 2014 for the astronomical price of 32,800 yen, but boy did that buy you a lot of stuff. Inside the box you'll get an optional neck cover, 2 different Osamu pilot figures, a Yang co-pilot figure, and a seat so you can convert the 1-seater base mode to 2-seat mode, 2 Yamato display stand adapters, a host of different missiles, 2 fold adapters for the Yamato fold drive that was sold previously, super/fast parts, I guess fast parts is the more accurate term, and a bunch of hard points to attach all of those missiles. I mentioned an optional neck cover. Here it is, just a thin little black piece of plastic that can cover the neck cavity. Now as you can see, without it, it is not the most ugly thing in the world, so I don't know how 100% necessary you might feel that this cavity cover is. Certainly the expectation is that you would use it in fighter mode, and that is what it looks like when it's on the plane. Again, it comes detached. The cockpit opens in the traditional Macross Plus way, where the front opens and the back opens separately. There we go. You have to kind of pull up and then they swing. It's kind of easier really just to detach the front windscreen, and you'll notice that the nose kind of pops down on you usually. There is a back filler piece that you can then remove, and that allows you to use this second included chair. And just go ahead and slide that in there. It'll fit pretty firmly. So there you go. Now you have 2-seater version of the YF-19. And we can then take our Yang pilot figure, which does not have the little clear globular head that the original Yamato version had. It does have arms that are separate, so you can move them around or pull them right off if you want to have an armless Yang for some reason. I can go ahead and put him in. Okay, so a little bit of a tight fit, but let's get that in there. Get it. There you go. Get that seat pushed back all the way, and there you go. So he's a full-size figure, and he does fit in there. Then you have your 2 different Osamu figures to play with and choose from. One with a helmet, one without. Both very well detailed, and that's because they're both the same figure. The head is removable, so they put a helmetless head on some and a helmet on others. I'm going to go ahead and plop in the helmeted version. Now it is a very tight fit around that control center, but there you go. So now I can go ahead and put my windscreen back on, and there you have both pilots in the YF-19. Some of you may be familiar with Yamato's original 160 YF-19 toy. You may also be familiar with Yamato's very good VF-19 toys that they were releasing just before they went belly up. This Arcadia product is not a reissue of either one of those toys. It's not a repaint of the Yamato VF-19s. It is a new mold. You do get, though, many of the same attributes that Yamato had employed in their original 160 YF-19 toy, if not a bit polished. I showed you the pilot figures of the Arcadia toy. Here are Yamato's original pilot figures of Yang and Osamu. Here is the Arcadia helmetless one that I did not put in the toy. And you can see the pilot figures themselves have come a long way. And that's carried over throughout the toy. So while the Yamato toy did have intake covers that could be removed, and did have a articulated front landing gear tow bar and rear landing gears that angled and locked into place, rubber wheels, all of those things are also on the Arcadia toy. There you have those intake covers removed. I've already put the gun in on this toy. It fits the same on the old Yamato. You have the rear landing gears that angle outward and lock into place, although these are carried from Yamato's VF-19 toys and lock a little bit better. They just aesthetically look a little bit better too. You have your rolling rubber wheels, and again, articulated front tow bar. So all of those things carried forward from Yamato's offering, including the split opening canopy and the dual seat functionality. So Those are attributes of a YF-19. You got them from Yamato. You get them again now from Arcadia. So all of those gimmicks that you should have expected being here is cool, but you also get a couple new gimmicks that weren't ever employed on the Yamato toy, such as the high speed mode, which lets you fold these wings back and get that plummeting mode that Asamo used when approaching Macross City towards the end of Macross Plus. You also get a missile bay within... Let's within the leg. So there you go. Now there is a missile in there. That missile is also removable. I'm not going to bother doing it, but it's in there. Little square missile slides back into place just like that. So two cool little gimmicks available on the Arcadia toy that you wouldn't have ever been able to realize on the Yamato toys. The other big plus you get with the Arcadia toy is hardpoints on the wings. There are no hardpoints on the Yamato product. So you get hardpoints and 8 billion different missiles you could put on there. Now I will give you a gripe right now, and that is that the missiles, while they are cool and that they can be totally disassembled, they fall off their little hardpoints awfully easy, and it can be frustrating when handling them, like you just saw right there. So that seems to be a little silly to me, but when it actually comes to attaching to the wings themselves, everything attaches very firmly into place. But if your hardpoint connects super firmly, but then it stays on while the missile falls off, you're kind of right back at that place where you are frustrated with the quality of your hardpoints. So I was a little let down, particularly these longer missiles and how easily they flop off. You can see that one just fell. So that's annoying. Again, do the same thing on the other side. You can also see as I do this that the wings for high speed mode are very weak. They are folding out just as I try to put missiles on. So here we go. Now we've got a somewhat loaded up, because those missiles fell off, YF-19. And if I hold it like this and shake it, the wings come askew. So the high speed mechanism is fairly poorly implemented on this toy. It will cause you headaches quite frequently, so that is a bummer to see. The missiles, it's great that you have them, but they shouldn't add to frustration, and unfortunately that is definitely what will happen here. Okay, before we slap fast packs on this thing, let's take a moment to admire its beauty. From its profile, you can see there is no longer the big fat gullet that the Yamato YF-19 was so criticized for. You can also see the Arcadia's got a little bit lighter cream color to it and less beige influence. One thing you will see as a negative on the Arcadia is the black area where the leg is extended. I'll use the wing to point to it right there. So on the Yamato toy, no extended leg in fighter mode. On the Arcadia toy, you see that there. On a pro side, look at the guns. The Arcadia, much larger, actually gets past that crotch piece. The crotch piece has the proper shape on the Arcadia toy, not on the Yamato toy. So bigger, beefier gun. The gun is pointing downward. That's despite the fact that it has a little recessing gimmick that I'll show you when I get to Gearwalk mode. So something to quibble about there. From above, the Arcadia toy does have that nice angle in and then back out again. Very nice angles on the Arcadia toy. There's clearly a dearth of painted on detail on both of these toys. So if you're trying to compare to the Bandai VF-19 Advance, the Arcadia looks a little plain. But I will go into that more when I do my VF-19 Advance review. You may remember the Yamato YF-19 with its fast packs, and those fast packs installed via magnets, and they only consisted of two parts on either side, a leg panel and this top rounded what would become a shoulder panel. On Arcadia's YF-19, you do not attach these with magnets. They actually just peg into place. I'm not actually going to show you that in this video. I probably will include that in my transformation video. There's also a third piece that fits inside the leg cavity here, more true to how the YF-19 fast packs are supposed to be, as well as that shoulder piece. Everything fits together very firmly. All the fast pack pieces are staying in place just like I'd want them to, so all of that is very positive. I've also put the reaction missiles on the toy just because I like the look, but the reaction missiles are fairly heavy and it exacerbates that problem with the wings moving on their own. So something to keep in mind. Other little pet peeves of mine as I handle the toy, the front canards easily bumped. You can even make them fall all the way off. They're not the most firm piece on the toy, so that can be frustrating at times. Also, these little parts above the intakes can be easily jostled during handling. The back of the gun, if you happen to grab that, slides off very easily. I'll show you the gun more when I get to Gearwalk mode. So, not quite as polished as you handle the toy. Things that you want to be firm and lock into place don't always do that. The fast packs themselves do though, but they also eliminate that missile gimmick we saw before. So this missile bay in here, not operational when this piece is pegged into place. So things to be aware of. I don't know how many people were really planning on using that missile while the fast packs were on there, but you don't have access to it, so get that out of your head now. The easiest way to quickly deliver your reaction payloads is via a fold drive. Here you can see I've attached the Arcadia fold drive attachment pieces here and here. They're a little different green than the Yamato fold drive that was sold once upon a time, but they clip right on, and then you can just slide forward and you'll clip in the front. Now doing this you might knock your shield off, but maybe not. So there you go. Here it is attached and looking good. Okay, that's it for fighter mode. Let's go ahead and move on to Gearwalk. I will not be detailing transformation in this video, but I will have a separate video and I highly recommend you check it out. One highlight of transformation though is the shield. The shield looks like this in fighter mode. When going to Gearwalk mode, and then ultimately Batroid mode, you can pinch in these two side covers. Thus, that cavity for the head laser from fighter mode is then concealed. Flipping the shield over, you'll see there's a metal plate, so metal's always nice, right? And there are these two pegs that we are using in fighter mode to attach both arms. In Gearwalk mode, we can do something different with that. Let's turn our attention to the gun. This is how the gun looks in fighter mode. When you go to Gearwalk mode, you're going to use your fingernails and you're going to pull up the front of the barrel like so. You can then flip the toy over and remove the magazine. You can also remove this piece on top. Not sure why you would. You can then collapse the trigger, replace the magazine, and that locks the trigger into place. And you have now made the gun into a position where it can attach to those pegs on the shield. So you're going to use the peg you're not using for attaching to the arm. And you can do it in either direction. Here you can, whichever way you feel more comfortable. And then go ahead and attach the shield to the arm. And there you have it. So that's a nice little gimmick for Gearwalk or Batroid modes. This is the original Yamato 160 YF-19 released many years ago again. In Gearwalk mode, in this position, you might think it looks okay, but it was actually quite the hot mess. If I wanted to move the arms, you could see the chest area moves. If I wanted to pick the toy up, it became completely unstable. You needed sort of an A stance to create the pressure that kept everything together in the middle. So, a lot to be desired in this particular version of the toy. So if you are a fan of Gearwalk mode and wondering if you should upgrade to the Arcadia, that definitely leaves you a lot to consider. Here, on the other hand, is the Arcadia toy, which I can pick up by the neck. Now there's a lot of weight in the back, so you saw that one joint pop, but You can pick it up. It is super solid. I can move the arms. There isn't anything going on here that is going to cause anything to fall apart on me like it did on the original toy. That being said, there are a couple major flaws. One carries forward from the original toy but has been exacerbated, and that is the wings. There's nothing that keeps them into place, so as you're handling the toy, you might get your wings askew pretty easily. It'd be nice if there was just like a little dimple or something that kind of locked them into the proper position. The bigger problem you will have with the Arcadia YF-19 is the ankles, which is less of a problem on the original toy. So you get one new problem with all those other problems solved. The ankles are very loose on a front to back motion. So if you don't put them in all the way to the extreme, your toy is just going to nosedive on you. So what I do to solve that is I bring them, there's a pivot on the inside of that ankle, I bring the foot over as far as I can so that the inner leg then is butting up against the foot. That will give you the pressure you need to be able to have your toy in gear walk mode without falling on its face. The Fastpacks work great in gear walk mode. They stay on very securely. They're not popping off my legs. Certainly, if you brush them the wrong way, you certainly can pop them off. Again, it's just two little tabs on the legs that are holding them there. And there are the Fastpack pieces on the back of the legs. That should not cause you any sort of issue. The only thing you really have to be at all concerned about is if you use the hardpoints on the wings. Those weapons could definitely hit up against your arms depending on what you're doing with the arms. Same thing with the shoulder part that can bump up against whatever you would be doing with the arm. As far as the shield goes, if your hand bumps the shield, it will pop off. So otherwise, normally on there solid enough to not be a concern. The feet, still a concern. And finally, we get to Batroid mode, which looks a little something like this. I have installed the optional back fillers in the back of the legs. I go over that in my transformation guide also, but here just to show you, this is the little filler. You don't need to use it. It's not terrible without it. It plugs in with one peg. My complaint would be that it doesn't really plug in securely enough. So that seems to be a recurring complaint with this toy, is that things just don't stay where they're supposed to stay. To that end, the ankles are also just freaking terrible in Batroid mode as well, so expect that. Otherwise, obviously, it looks very, very good in this mode. Articulation, you have your pivot point at the shoulder, which lets you get some pretty neat punching poses. Then you have, obviously, your rotation point. You have your inner arm shield mechanisms that come down. Your twist point at the elbow. You bring the elbow up. It reveals the double elbow, which lets you get the 90-degree action that you would want in an elbow. There's also the pivot point underneath the shoulder. And then the hands rotate at the wrist. There's a pivot point just past the wrist. You have these three fingers are on one joint, your trigger finger is another, and the thumb on another. So that's all good stuff. There is no waist joint, nor would you really expect there to be. You do have the ability to pivot the hips outward for a nice A stance angle. That's very good to see. Come back in. You could bring them back. You do have the canards will eventually hit there, so be a little conscious of what you're doing with that upper piece. And then, of course, you could bring them forward also. Your wings on a rotating point here, you'll want to fidget with them to get them out of the way of whatever pose you are trying to accomplish. There is the gear walk joint underneath, so that might help you do certain poses. And then you have the knee, obviously. There went one of my leg filler pieces, which, oh, there goes the other one. So that, to my point earlier about not staying in well enough, there you see it. All right, so let's get that gear walk joint in. It's rather stiff. There is that rotation point also at the knee. Better for out than in. And then you have the double ball jointed ankles, which will just drive you nuts because they are so loose. So you could go ahead and collapse them in and then almost not use them at all. That's certainly another option for you to consider if they were driving you nuts. But overall, articulation, very good, if not somewhat ruined by those ankles. Okay, here is the Yamato YF-19 again. As you can see, it's quite a bit taller than the Arcadia toy. The Yamato is about 25.5 centimeters, the Arcadia roughly 23 centimeters, which does make the Yamato toy a better 160 scale than the Arcadia, which is more around 165. But the Arcadia does a much better job of representing the line art with its more squat proportions. So it's kind of up to you. If you're a big scale stickler, you might be a little irked by the size the Arcadia comes in. Otherwise, the Arcadia, obviously the better rendition. The other thing that might irk you about the Arcadia is it's got this little gap in front of the nose cone. That's because of the shape of the nose cone in fighter mode, where it's a lot better than the Yamato. But the Yamato toy does benefit from being able to come down flatter on top of the nose cone. So a perk for the Yamato there. Both toys have the same head gimmick, which again, if it was on the Yamato toy, you would hope it's going to be on your Arcadia toy. And this gimmick allows you to pry up the head, which is very stiff, and then a visor comes off, and then you get something that looks a little like this. So there is the Yamato head without the visor and top of the head on it. The Arcadia toy, oops, maybe that shield doesn't attach as firmly as I'd like it to after all. On the Arcadia toy, the top part pops off pretty easily. Then the visor is a little more difficult to pull off. On the Yamato toy, it just kind of falls off when you get to this point, but there you go. And that is your Arcadia face. So it's just a little bit darker. Can I get them both in the shot together? So there you go. You get the same gimmick, a little bit sharper on the Arcadia version, but otherwise not very much changed. Okay, if you're curious what your Arcadia YF-19 will look like, surrounded by the Yamato Macross Plus toys, here it is for you. You can still see the Yamato YF-19 towering over it in the background there. And you can see your Arcadia YF-19 is approximately the same size as the VF-11B now, which granted the Yamato VF-11B is a little bit bigger than it should be. But this does look a little strange for those of you who are familiar with how tall these vehicles should be. You obviously want your YF-19 and your YF-21 a little bit closer in size than they currently are. So if you're planning on displaying them not very dynamically together in a display case somewhere, the contrast of sizes might kind of jump out at you a little bit. I'm not sure very many people would realize the difference or care, so some of you might be thinking it's a little bit silly, but just a consideration for you. I will move this YF-19 before it falls down now, and take a little bit closer look at the fast packs on the Batroid mode Arcadia toy. You can see the back of the leg there, there's the piece. Everything stays on much better than it did with the Yamato toy. Oops. Those magnet-based ones used to fall off pretty easily. Overall, this YF-19 is a maddening toy. It is so close to great, but not. The sloppy ankles, the other sloppiness, the intake covers falling off. Here you can see the ankles causing me trouble right now. It will frustrate the crap out of you. And for such an expensive toy, that is just unacceptable. So it's really a shame. It seems like there isn't another release coming anytime soon. So Arcadia doesn't really have a chance to address some of these seemingly very easily fixed problems with this toy, because if they did come out with a second release and just tightened a few things up, it'd probably be great. As it is, difficult to recommend except to diehard YF-19 fans. For those, it is a huge step up from the Yamato offering, so you definitely should go out and get this. or the Bandai YF-19 Advance, and stay tuned for my review of that toy. Thanks for viewing. Check out anymoon.com for more.